Okay.
Yeah, let Bruce do it.
This one will be okay. It's the next one.
Midnight when we get out.
Okay. I'll go back.
How's your foot? It's doing a lot better. I love that color. What is it?
City council.
That's a bad thing when you know.
What is it?
Austin
Oh.
Well, that and British motorcycles.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Oh my gosh.
What is it? Is it a straight four? Six.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
My brother had a Triumph. Was it a four? Man, that thing, literally, I mean, you could do anything you wanted, so I swear it was just, the machine was for the thermal expansion, filtration, you put the gas in the damn thing, so. That was a really cute car drive. I gotta say.
All right, it's nice to meet all y'all.
Nice meeting you also.
It is.
Fran has turned it down.
She did?
She has it, she's going to.
Well, I'm sure.
I just told her not to turn it down to
I just took my
65.
sweatshirt off. I'm sure she's gonna turn it down. Yeah, he's doing it before any.
Oh, don't go over there and put it on 60.
Well, it's burning up in here.
Damn
Put
it.
it on 70.
That's for my sweatshirt. I'm not taking any changes. I'd rather be comfortable.
Yeah, me too.
Just get a little personal heaters underneath it. But they would freeze out there, I guess.
Oh, water would be awesome. Thank you. I forgot to get it. There, that is better.
Aren't the chairs nice?
Yeah, sitting here dangling my feet.
Slow it down a little bit.
Yeah.
So everybody's over your COVID and everything, everybody's good. Y'all got out of that house free to kill each other. I was like, yeah, Tina needs to get out of that. You don't need to get out of that house. I can just imagine.
Yeah, my
I mean, I would have been saying that. I'm like, if I would have been saying that, I'd been rabid.
yeah, well, I wasn't just COVID too. I literally couldn't go.
No, I know. That's what I'm
anywhere.
saying. It was your son. I was there a week and I was like,
Good times.
oh no, I got out of the house. Yeah, I went out. I only felt that like whenever it's still the steroids kick in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Positive.
Yeah, I saw it go. Trade now. Trade now because I'd rather. I know, everybody would.
What? Barely anyone. The next one. I'm gonna enjoy, I know I'm gonna enjoy the top tier plan stuff, but it's.
Oh, great. Yeah, I knew that. I saw that in the paper. Thank you. All right, Mom.
I saw it back there. Hi, Raymond.
See, this is why I don't want the executive planner.
Give it to me.
All righty.
Who's coming?
Yeah, I'm trying to get him. Yeah, I'm trying to. I got 3:58.
Yeah, so 2 more minutes.
Couple minutes.
Yeah. No,
I'm trying to lose weight.
just keep passing it around. Now, if there's Reese's peanut butter cups there, I'll have fun for them. Leroy.
Okay.
What time do you see? Probably about. It's Sand Fest. It's one of the first ones after. 6:30. Okay, so.
Tell them to be here by. Lucy too.
Yeah, so.
Oh, whatever.
Hold on,
Your
trying
time.
to track down Bruce.
No problem. No rush.
You close? Okay, all right, okay, bye. All right. It's in the- Yeah, he's here.
Okay.
Just real quick, everybody should have one of these and then one of the presentation.
Yeah, we got one. Yeah.
He's here somewhere.
Ah.
Yeah. Well, all the stuff. Here he is. Coming in the door.
All right, Joan, fire away.
Okay. Call to order. Are there any citizens' comments? Okay, there being none, we will start the workshop session. Presentation and general discussion on Hurricane Harvey rebuild and recovery to include but not limited to city buildings, citywide gas system, and other hurricane-related topics.
So let me jump in real quick, just for a quick lead in. We wanted to do this to get to instead of just the ones that we have in the regular city council meetings that are always at the end of a 3 or 4 hour meeting. They always seem rushed through. It was kind of a consensus, hey, let's do a 1 hour workshop so that you guys can really get a good update and a better grasp and understanding of where we are, roles of all the team, bring the team in and just have one really good hour of all FEMA. So that was the purpose of this. And I'm gonna, because we're limited on time, I'm gonna quickly turn this over to Michael Doris with Del Sol leading the broadest Del Sol team. And Mike, you wanna do a quick intro and let's get it rolling?
Dr. Broadus here, owner of Broadus, Mary Lopez, David Putman, Leo Wood, the deputy program manager for our team, Joanna Regis, Claire Kelly, and myself, Michael Doris Jr.
And then we do have Raymond Janak with
And Mr.
Janak and Associates.
Raymond is here, who is the architect on the fire. And Thad is pictured here, but I think we have good news on insurance, so his role has slowed down. So tell you a little bit about our team. We arrived here in Port Aransas in January of 2018 to represent you on your Hurricane Harvey recovery. We currently have 3 full-time members of our staff that reside here full-time, work here, and live on the island, with other staff that do supported roles in other locations, including our office in Austin. The best way to explain is we're the liaison between the agencies and yourself, the city. Make sure grant compliance, all the codes, all the grant, FEMA obligations, everything are checked, so you do not lose this money in the obligations. The purpose, our team, our success is working back and front. We're working the audit side of the house first to get the projects ready for closeout. So when the auditors and accountants come in, the finance side of the house is in order as well. So we've been developing those files in compliance with the FEMA checklist for each project for here in Port Aransas. I wanted to go over the metrics with you to date. There is $85 million in federal FEMA funds alone. They're obligated and approved. Obligated and approved means you can draw down on them as a reimbursement once you have the receipts and you submit that to TEMA. Since we've arrived, we brought and assisted the finance department with 39.9 million of that 85 to date.
Is in the bank.
Is in the bank. So to walk you through the process, FEMA, we'll go through a chart here in a minute, but just because the money's obligated doesn't come directly to you. It sits at the state and the state manages until all the paperwork's in order to send what's a reimbursement. So,
But being obligated is a huge step because it means FEMA said, we're giving you the money at some point. So in other words, they've quasi have approved the project. So being obligated is a huge deal versus a project that has not been obligated. So there's a big difference. So there's like 3 things: unobligated, obligated, money in the bank. Money in the bank's great. Obligated is wonderful. Unobligated is what we're fighting.
So how long does
Tooth
it
and nail.
generally take when one's obligated to money in the bank?
it depends on the project. And the reason for that is we have gas obligated. It's a $22 million project. They're only going to disperse those payments when we get invoiced for it for the contract.
Understood.
So
But-
probably 4 to 5 million chunks will be coming in
Right.
payments.
So once the invoice is submitted, like, so we get the first invoice from the gas distribution, what's the time generally?
Claire, you want to?
6 to 90 days.
Okay, all All right, so we're out of that money for 60 and 90.
Yeah.
Now, will we?
Oh, 69.
Yeah, we have advances.
That's what
That
I was
advances.
wondering.
Yeah.
So to put in perspective, the projects and the recovery and the scope of the projects, when we arrived in 2018, there were 2 advanced PWs that funds had been exhausted to the city for debris. 3 total projects obligated, as David just explained. We currently sit at 63 projects total for the citywide projects, with an estimated budget of 102 million reimbursement funds.
So we have about 17 million to go to get obligated. So we're getting close.
What's the 85 million? The funds
That's
obligated.
Yes, ma'am. So that's, for example, you have obligated and approved the gas system. We haven't received those funds, but we could draw 100% of that today if we have received it for it. So 85 is available to pay ourselves back now.
Okay, so that's what we're gonna get.
Yes.
85 million.
Like David said, once it's obligated, it's the scope and the cost has been acknowledged by the federal government.
We just got to build it at that point.
But things like the public safety building, that's obligated, but only a portion of what it's going to cost.
Yes, sir. And I have a couple slides on the public safety I think are going to be very important. To let you jump ahead, Mr. David, we're going to talk about the projects and you have that other spreadsheet in front of you, but this is a list of the projects that we're either working as far as audit documents or construction and design and occurring. City Hall, we're doing the closeouts, multiple city parks.
Is that the nature preserve?
Yes, ma'am, that's some of the nature preserve, it's also community park, skate park, all closing and proving all that work was completed. You've got the public works garage, the fire station, 3 piers, which, we did a shovel turn this morning on one of them. The 2 bulkheads, Roberts Point, which is finished, and Charlie's Pasture, which you'll hear about later tonight as well in the council meeting for approval. And then the public safety complex, which we have some slides and options we want to introduce to you on some changes that have occurred. And tell you a little bit about some of the projects and successes of the gas system. When we first arrived here, Leo was assigned the gas system. It was a $250,000 grant to change out some meters that had been ripped out of the ground. Meeting with FEMA and urban engineering experts and stuff, they were able to put together a plan with the assistance of urban engineer and Mollen Prosa that we submitted to FEMA to say why the saltwater corrosion would ultimately affect the gas system, and you have an entire replacement gas system. When we won that project, which will be the largest project, public works project that I understand here in Port Range, when we won that project, we sent down a specialist from Houston. We rebutted your thing. We can't argue with you, you're right. However, we need you to break it down in some phases. So that's what we did. We did the design, high pressure, which is almost finished, near completion, hopefully by next month, and then the distribution, which you'll hear about later, that was just recently bid. So FEMA asked us to break those into those phases for environmental purposes. This next slide, I think, is the hardest one to explain, but the most important one to understand. This is the flow in which FEMA makes you go through their grant process. When the disaster occurs, you do a preliminary damage assessment, also called a PDA. Governor makes his request to the feds, a declaration occurs. They start telling you how they're gonna send teams down, and local municipalities start requesting for assistance, submission of request. Then you do a kickoff meeting, now referred to as a recovery scoping meeting, and this is when the process really starts on the individual basis. This process also has a step in it that is important. We have insurance on most of the facilities, infrastructure facilities. So there are 3 different insurance policies: wind, flood, and TML. You have to have those numbers and be able to provide that information, stating the loss, to FEMA to get these grants started. Then you go through the process. No matter if it's a $22 million PW or $2,500, which the minimum they'll write, the process is the same. You go through this flow chart, providing documentation back and forth to the federal government. They have been very successful in the last couple of years. Harvey rolled out a portal system that date stamps, logs, everything provided to FEMA. But you continue to provide documentation to the new team.
It does help to justify your position that you've been. Just the loop. That is what each project, when the project is the damage inventory, 7 million. So start hiring cost estimators, standards. So it's that 27. We have to follow to meet the system. So the last step. So as you can see, it doesn't as far as the process. Here on this slide,
disaster recovery funding sources that we've identified to apply for different purposes. There's the economic development grant with the sidewalks and the marina,
In the
Harbor Master Office.
And that included the $1
Land
million land acquisition of the old water district property on Ninth Street.
The next one is also FEMA dollars, but it's a different bucket of money. This is mitigation to protect from future loss of unaffected storm-related causes, raising the bulkhead 4 feet. That's an example of that. The PA stuff is the 92 million from FEMA. Restore Texas, we used it in nature preserve for some things already, different projects. We did debris removal, cut some trees, and the community disaster loan we're going to talk about in this public safety building here. That is a operations loan that comes after the storm. This loan is a low interest loan, usually 1%, provided by FEMA for stuff, not infrastructure, for your budget, your tax losses, those things. So when we got here, Darla, we worked with the previous year budget, all that. Did the loan, they granted it's up to $5 million is the max award. We received 4.3 based on the books for the city. We just recently received notification it is a forgiven loan, so FEMA will not make you pay that $4.3 million, just under $4.3 million.
Do they watch what you do with it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we did have to turn in, they'll give it to you to use for expenditures for operations. So we did have to provide a summary that tied out to that 4.3 million. We've done that. They're in the final stages of checking that. Leslie and I have not signed the official document yet, but they have told us it's forgiven and they have been provided all the information. It is great.
That was just in the last month or?
2 weeks ago.
Well, it's still today. I'm getting emails.
Oh, okay.
We're in that final process. We haven't signed it yet. We will.
Okay.
And we did not have that at the last city council meeting. We were here.
About how long supposed to get this?
We have the money today.
Okay, so we have the money already, okay.
Yeah, we're gonna,
Okay, so we're just finishing out a little bit of paperwork, in other words?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
all right.
It's just the
we're in
sign.
that closeout,
We're in the closeout.
verifying that the paperwork and everything checks the audits.
Okay. Cool.
They're tying to the general ledger, the expenditures that we had. They've done that. And I'm just waiting for the document for me to sign.
Awesome.
The next one is this community disaster block grant money. This is gonna be for drainage projects here. And those projects are well underway. We had some paperwork submitted to DLO and some more to sign today, so.
I think you guys approved those last spring. They were either approved right before you guys got on, or
Which one was it?
it's the 5 drainage projects.
That was just before us.
Yeah, I think it was just before you.
The insurance proceeds additional 2.8 million. We were able to fight and get some more for heavy equipment. We were able to get more from the TML. So insurance and FEMA recognized us in doing that in their project worksheets as well. And then, I know David and his team as well worked very hard on this. This is, you have a 90% federal share, 10% local match. Your state has picked up 75% of the 10%. So you have a 25% share, 10% of cost.
So for every million, FEMA picks up 900,000, state picks up
So we have
75,000,
25,000.
25,000 on every million.
That's a good thing.
Pretty good money.
This next one is, this is the federal agency coordination. Every grant that goes through the process goes through reviews by different federal agencies for compliance, as well as an internal FEMA review process. And the review queues is what is identified here. The important part of this slide is mainly the four at the bottom. And the impacts of the area and the focus and importance of these projects from an EHP standpoint. So each project, especially the piers, the nature preserve boardwalk, any insensitive environmental areas, go to each one of these agencies with an average of 180-day review time.
For each item.
For each item, for each agency. Yes, ma'am.
And then, so if you have a change, you recirculate,
So is
the
it
clock starts over.
Is it going to all four agencies at the same time and then, or it has to go one just down the road?
Goes to FEMA.
Right.
FEMA's responsible for those processes. Your design is still working with the Corps for permitting.
Right.
But FEMA drives that. Now, we have a coordination meeting with FEMA EHP bi-weekly to go over the projects and the action items. The latest example, Leo, was the boardwalk. And the Corps' time at was wildlife.
35 days, then they had an RFI, which kicks the clock again, goes to another 130.
So,
But we did mention that the issue about U.S. Fish and Wildlife, I think at the last meeting, having some heartburn over the boardwalk being rebuilt, penetrating into nature, that was satisfied. So we did get over that. So it's on track.
next project here is the chamber. This was the first replacement here in the city. Very important, I think, here, this $1 million project that was obligated. And when we first arrived here, they had a repair of roof shingles and some sheetrock and electrical. We were able to work with FEMA, do what's called a 50-50 analysis, show there's enough damage over half that should justify this being a complete replacement. What this does allowed us the flexibility as well to complement the needs of the chamber and a replacement, where a lot of our struggles when it was a repair was it was an unfunctional internal building for the needs they had. So that is one of the projects, the first replacement project here in Port Aransas. Here are three of the most important projects we've worked with to understand the process and where we are. So these are the pier projects. The Roberts Point Pier project is estimated at 1.6. We have 2.2 million obligated. Charlie's Pasture Pier was estimated at 2.2, but they only gave us the 1.4 in the grant. And then Ansel Brundrett Memorial Pier was estimated 2.1, and we're at 1.9. This is how FEMA determines their own cost until the bids are run. So these estimated costs are the professional engineer backed up by an estimator, in this case, Urban Engineering, and these are the difference FEMA numbers. So now that the piers have been bid, we will take all the obligated funds and the actual numbers and ask FEMA for a amendment request for each one of those piers and go through the paperwork cycle at project formulation through closeout.
Are they likely to do that?
Oh, they will. It's already been granted. And here, look at example on the piers. All three piers were not concrete piers at the time of Harvey. And the infrastructure branch director and FEMA pushed back very hard on the lease we had with the Port of Corpus Christi, and that they had to be built back concrete. And we went through some legal discussions with OCC, showed the lease, and got all the information from the port over a year to to change from wood to concrete, then to go to design, Joan. So we were also able to take the wave action into consideration. So now where the whatever the BFE is, we've got those elevated to where the current wave action is. We did have to also, the pilots felt that the Ansel Brundrat Memorial Pier was too far, the ship channel didn't want it built. We were able to work with the port, our team, David especially with the riverboat pilots, and agreed 35 shrunk. That had to go to the Corps for approval from their land department in DC. All of that's checked. Now what we need to do is we need to build those piers. Total $6.2 million of piers, and we estimate by the end of the year, those piers to be back in function.
And you guys have already awarded that contract.
So that's the process, Ms. Joan, that we have to go through, even though they said they're complete concrete, they can be elevated and stuff. They're not gonna take our A&E estimate, our estimate, they're gonna wait for the bid and align it to the bid cost. This is the EDA grant. We kind of touched on this a little bit. This is additional funds that come after a storm later. We were able to get the land from the old water district on 9th Street, which is going to allow us all the necessities we need for fire, the truck size difference. The parking and mobility project is punch list items out there. Docks 10 and 3, but the lifts need to be installed.
Yeah, they've been demoed.
Yep, demo is done. And then the one left to still design is the Harbor Master Pavilion. This one is tied to a FEMA project, and we are moving forward with Raymond and Janak on the design. And because the two grants tied together, it was a coordination between FEMA and EDA that needed to take place. The final design is due to us in April. We'll advertise and hopefully get May, June at the latest for recommendation for that. And that will be the final project with the EDA. We're well within those restricted timelines for calendar dates. Really, this is the focal point. Three main infrastructure projects, three main critical facilities by the definition of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and three projects that have been they've been interesting at best. So I'm going to go through these projects and give you where we are, kind of design, square footage, price, and end on the public safety with a couple options for you guys to give us some further direction from. So Public Works right now, the square footage approved to date is 5,310 of climate controlled with a canopy in the back of about 1,100 square feet. We have 65% drawings from Turner, which brings that square footage to 6,836.
So how are they coming up? There's
Two things. So the 1176 covered canopy is something that we would have to request an approval on. That's some of it, and then codes and standards. So, and that's the same process we've taken with the public safety and fire, justifying that codes and standards. This is at FEMA for review. Approved to date, there's available $1.3 million with a $460,000 insurance deduct. So FEMA's got 872 to the project, and you have insurance funds just below $500,000. FEMA has this building, that 50-50 rule we told you about, we're at 50.6.
so it's just over.
And don't ask me how. I think everybody's
Wow.
seen Public Works, including FEMA, but that, yes, sir, their calculations from a repair to replacement don't leave much wiggle room for them to disagree with those. So that's what we're working on right now. We've requested a working meeting, and it's confirmed that request has been received at our Wednesday progress meeting with TDM and FEMA to discuss their position on the differences and let them ask us what they need as far as backup or justification. And we believe by June, we'll have the design decisions, associated costs, if you want to close in an air conditioning the overhang stuff for the council to review and give us direction. Turner Ramirez is the design architect and record officer.
So with 1.36 that's approved, how close is that to covering? Do we feel, I mean, I know we don't have exact estimates, but how close is it to covering what's being proposed?
For Turner Ramirez estimate on that one, 2.8? 2.8 is where Turner Ramirez estimated. And like I said, their estimate's gonna include some stuff that we haven't talked to them about. I don't know a code that's gonna let me move an exterior wall.
Right.
So that's gotta be discussed.
About 1.5 short.
I'm halfway there, and here, well. Yes, sir. I'm halfway there, because your A&E fees are not in that 2.8. That's just that's the hard cost often referred to as part A of the estimate. The fire station is the next one. So the fire station and the public safety building have been discussed with the regional director of FEMA for much longer. These projects, we did code analysis with Janak, per the request of FEMA. Sent that information in, and we had our first appeal denied. So what that means is the same people that we asked on the ground, Huddle and Denton, as the regional minds of FEMA, review the information to make sure they've seen everything in one setting and issue a statement of whether they agree or deny. First appeal was denied, and so we filed for what's arbitration. You have two steps. You can go second appeal or arbitration. Arbitration is an independent panel of 3 federal judges that hear both testimonies and make an independent decision. They don't go to the policy guide, they don't go to the law. If it makes sense, usually it makes their determination. We went to that. It's arbitrated, which is a 18-month process. Arbitrator from FEMA had both sides on the fire station and public safety, reviewed all our details and told FEMA, I think you guys need to go back to the table to look at the discrepancies that exist here and come back to us, see if we can work together. We agreed to do that February of last year. Said we'll give you 2 months. It's not out of the ordinary, but here's the judges. We don't want to tell them no, because they're ultimately making the final decision. I don't want to call it TDM and all them. 2 months, we told them. We just got the public safety thing since the last time I met with y'all. Last week. I still don't have the fire that they received in February that we appealed 18 months before that. So the same information.
In all reality, I mean, what time?
So I asked the question on this one yesterday on the Wednesday call, will we have it by the end of the month? Unlikely. I would imagine, knowing FEMA, I would imagine 60 days, because they can't be that far off. They got them at the same time with public safety was more complicated. But I will tell you, we've been asking them questions since April, and they won't even tell us where it was. We'll get it to you. I said, can you just tell us no, so we go back to the judges and say we're not working together? We'll get it to you.
So I think I've asked this question before. We have very critical public safety and fire. Why are they so determined to hold out? I mean, these are critical things for any town, not just Fort Ag.
I don't have a good answer.
Okay.
I tell David this every time. I look at critical facilities are typically built in coastal areas, just like that Coast Guard stand. So they don't come back and pay for it twice. I can take you to police stations, fire stations, courthouses all across the country. This one, they have struggled with. I don't have an answer.
So like in Texas in general, from Harvey, are most other cities getting their fire stations and public safety, or are they all in the same boat?
I think that the telling tale for me yesterday was, you see the beach, they're working on that facility. See the Coast Guard, who's the federal government funded, federal government, they're not much farther ahead of us. Rockport and Aransas County, we represent, working on the city hall courthouse. I mean, different reasons, some for different reasons, right? Met with the church, Presbyterian church, waiting for FEMA. So it's a disaster problem across the country.
Right.
But it has been a problem. Do we want to blame COVID? Do we want to blame team?
I have a question. In the scheme of things, are we ahead of Rockport? Are we behind? Are we on parity in other surrounding communities?
I will tell you at year 4, going into year 5, you're on pace with recoveries, except the critical facilities have flipped from the others. I mean, to be at $85 million obligated, you're in the ground for your harder projects. Believe it or not, these are the easier ones. So you're right on there. I mean, we talked about this in the first one we did, like this workshop like this. Katrina, I got an email for a closeout on Katrina last week, 2005.
So do
But
we,
the infrastructure should never do that. Paperwork and stuff.
so do we have Rock Festival at the fire station?
Yes, sir, I'm gonna go,
Okay.
so, on the fire station, with,
That's one thing about the level of effort to highlight public safety in the fire station for us. And I've been keep track of this, and these projects are near and dear to me personally. I would have to say that there has been an extraordinary amount of effort. Your questions about why FEMA has been so resistant on those are the questions that we've all been asking.
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to be a pain, but I
No,
want to.
no, that is a very good question, and FEMA actually has in their, first of all, I think in December of 2019, this council, many members of this council went on a delegation trip to Washington DC. We literally, and I don't want to say forcibly, but with a lot of pressure, we got in to see Senator Cornyn's office, Senator Cruz's office, and Congressman Cloud. I don't mean pressure to get into their office. They're Texans, and they're very willing to see constituents. FEMA was very difficult to get in. We were able to, through the director of FEMA at the time, get in and see a very large group within FEMA. And quite frankly, they listened. They sort of, I guess, sympathetic for yelling at us or anything. But they really said, well, that's a regional responsibility. You know, we're just policy up there. That's a region. So that was, so they kind of punted it back to the region. But I will also add that, that your two senators, Congressman Cloud, wrote a giant letter to FEMA highlighting this. All 3 of them signed it. Okay. You don't so often get 3 people at that level to sign the same letter. So there has been an enormous amount of pressure. And one last thing I'll say on it is that when this appeal came out last year, February last year, and they said, no, we don't want to go to arbitration. We'll settle with you. Okay, we'll sit down. We will solve that within a month. We're going to work on this real hard. We're going to come to an agreement in a month. The word I have for that is a polite word, is stonewall. They stonewalled us, and they started the whole review process over again, and didn't come out with that denial until what, 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
So
Monday.
So there's been an enormous amount of pressure put on them.
So Dave, are we still looking to?
Well, he's gonna get there.
Okay, sorry.
But I'm sorry.
Okay, you know where I'm going.
Yeah.
It's such a part of this.
I'm sorry, yeah, but
All right, so to kind of give you the fire station numbers real quick, because I think public safety is, we got some details to go through, but right now, for the fire station obligated is, $1.3 million. And I think after insurance deduction, FEMA's commitment is about $800,000. Here's the thing. They want a sheet metal building built back. I don't know how you do that on a coast.
It doesn't even meet code.
They are now not sure that should have been a repair versus replacement. They are reviewing that packet. Until I have that packet and the specifics of what they're approving and denying, we've been asking that for a year to give you that. So the 1.3, could be different tomorrow when they give us that report, but that's where you are. You have 800,000 in Fed and about 3 or 4.
So if you have a rough estimate to build a fire station to code for the coast, what are we looking at most likely?
$5 million is the A&E estimate that was submitted as arbitrary. Yes, sir. All right. Now I want to move on to public safety. And I want to start a little bit different. I want to give you some of those facts and have the team assist me here because we've been buried in this report, in this exercise. But what you had across the street that still exists was 10,933 square feet and a 900 square foot mezzanine, which is now being referred to FEMA as a mechanical. Our arbitration request was 15,500. That was with about a 30% circulation, which is one of the most difficult hurdles we've had. Right now, after a year of reviewing Janak's code analysis, Pointer's estimate, all the information of the experts, we got a report last Monday. FEMA has agreed to increase their findings after a year to 11,467 square feet. So that's where we are. That plan, that's locked. That's for their position without appeal for the local level. All right. Associated with that, we have 3. This just occurred getting this report, and the report went through. To give you an example of what FEMA did, they took our report by the expert, by the civil, stamped the civil, the estimator did the estimate. We did an independent estimate, all that information. They had a civil engineer do a code report to rebut the report. So right now, option A is to do and stay the course that we've been doing. And that is dispute the square footage and the cost of it. What is their square footage cost per square foot? $300 a square foot is where FEMA is.
What's the average cost to build a facility? Real cost.
Our Pointer estimate is 5, you probably 455, depending on what materials you use. And I'm gonna go
400 to 500.
yeah.
300 right now is what it costs to build wood.
Yeah,
That's just, if you want to build a house, you're paying $300 square feet.
So we would go back through the first appeal, the same process, 18 months, and at this point, not agree to do anything but let the federal judges tell us who's right and who's wrong. When that determination is made, the arbitration panel issues the determination, whatever they say goes. They say 15,000 square feet, that's what we build. They say 11,467.
So the worst case scenario is they side with FEMA at 11,000, whatever that is.
And 300 square
At
foot.
best is they side with us at
15,500 and 500 square foot.
Do they look at the cost?
They do, and we have estimates and it goes in line. We just tried a fire station, arbitration fire station with the same case, same thing for the city of Hattiesburg in the arbitration system. They're gonna get their replacement, they're gonna get the wind loads, they're gonna get the elevations, the materials.
It's a mirror image. Why are we asking?
Between the codes and standards with the jail cells and everything, the report from Janak with the assistance of the specialist, that is their square foot justification, and we backed it up by those code references. That's what we provided.
Like, for example, like we don't meet current juvenile holding facilities. So you have to have juvenile female, juvenile male. We don't have any of that. So you have to have all kinds of new separation requirements in the federal law. So when you build a modern building, you have to meet new federal law. So you start, hey, your bathroom's not ADA, it's now, yeah.
Circulation.
Yeah.
So that it's gonna go back.
Oh,
They need the old code.
It's not an old, right, it's,
Early nineties, 91.
when we got this report last week, my first call was to the PAGs at FEMA to say, the estimate's gonna stamp this. He says it is stamped. So it's a civil engineer because you have to build the code or you're not getting a permit. The reason we're at 15.5 is the functions, the circulation, stuff like that. This data,
No, that's
It-
perfectly fine.
it's
answer.
the
It was
work,
just
it's,
like, I can see where FEMA's are.
Absolutely.
Say, hey, we have a 12,000 square foot building and you want 15.
what the Hattiesburg successful one was, and the reason I have personal confidence the way I do is it's the professionals. The code is the code. If the judge often asks us, who's stamping and what's your professional opinion? That's Raymond, and his team. So, the concern, we could have is how to build 11,467. You have to have like kind square footage function, so EMS has to stay. You have to use the same building materials. The only thing that building will look different is it's gonna go up
2 feet.
2 feet above the floor.
Mike, let's keep rolling because we're
Okay.
down about.
So the
18
option
minutes.
B is to take the program description FEMA, we just talked about that, build it to 11,463, exactly like it is, wall for wall. Put that out to bid, and whatever 11,463 square feet comes in at, FEMA pays for. EMS stays, the drawing and code. Option C is what I want to make sure we have enough time to talk about, because a lot has changed in a couple of weeks. In looking at the arbitration and all the efforts and everything, our option C allows us to request an improved project. We're gonna tell FEMA in writing, we're gonna do something different. Move EMS up. We've done that, but we'll do it formally. It'll allow the city the flexibility to build across the street, whatever building, whatever function you want. You'll cap out at the federal dollars, the 4.2 for federal FEMA and insurance. And what we're looking to do is apply that CDL forgiveness of 4.2 to give us $8.4 million to do the public safety. Here's the caveat. You can still go to this arbitration panel and get your
So that
$4 million back.
so
It
that
does
doesn't-
not, the improved project, the attorney, I've talked to the state. If we do the improved project request before we put a shovel in the ground, we at least have a legal battle.
Right, so this does not jeopardize the process.
No, sir. However,
Okay.
no, what it does do is you have to decide, you going 15.5, 11,467, or 12.5, somewhere kind of in the middle. That's why I threw that number up there, because once we go,
If there's a-
by the time I get to court, that ship's sailed. So that is the key to the determination. I also believe, based on, we had 72,000 in demolition in this recent report. Our recommendation as a team is let's get the bid package together, get the demo. Even our attorneys have been in every room to measure that thing over and again, and start to get ready for the facility and let the design go, but get rid of the demolition and start progress.
So at 12,500, it would be about $6 million.
Basically, at that 8.4, when you put
That's about
A and E,
47%
that's
A&E.
about, yes, sir. It's about 12.5 will give you that 8.4 budget flows in that 12.5.
So for demolition, everything together.
72,000, demo will be paid on actual, because it's a replacement.
So that's what 500 and some square.
With the A and E fees and all, and the management and the permitting, yes, sir. All right, that sounds.
Yeah, if you do 500 square foot, that's 6.2 million plus 27% A and E, 1.68 million, gets you right at 8 million.
Okay, so 12,500 is a pretty,
That is what
Pretty
we,
realistic.
that's what, based on the market and the numbers that we have now with this money available, puts you at the closest safest. If we go to 15.5, I don't know. Man.
right, so the question is, we're about 3,000 square feet less than what critical things is it going to affect? I guess?
What are we taking out?
It's not, well, here's the great part. EMS is 3,500 feet. So you're taking EMS, so the plan was, we're eventually gonna be going to some type of hybrid fire EMS combo in the future, so you want them in the same building.
Right.
Which is why the new
So
fire
basically-
design is a fire EMS combo.
So basically, this would be just for police and.
Yeah, you're gonna throw the constable a little bone, you're gonna throw the municipal court a little bone, you're gonna give them each a little growth, so they get all their growth they need.
So the county throws in some money into.
County has a little bit, it's not a whole lot.
500,000?
It's insurance, but whatever it is.
Yeah, it's their insurance.
It's part of the agreement.
Small. We were the main insurance.
Right.
So just real clear, so 12.5 is okay, because we're gonna put the EMS somewhere else.
With fire, yes,
So,
If you stay planned and combine and fire.
which I think is, that's what we got.
What's
Let
that?
me ask about option A, that's same course, right? Keep,
Mr. Norman, we're at year 4. Option A, if you give me that as an option, I'm gonna be disappointed.
So,
B,
We can still fight
yeah,
and build the
yeah.
thing.
so with options
so you can
C,
still do that.
You're just risking your 4.2 extra money you just found, you're risking it now instead of waiting. We've been waiting.
so with option C, so all the boxes have been checked legally, that there's no issues with doing it this way. I'm just making sure here.
Yes, sir, no.
So are we just, Dave, are we decided on this, or what's?
Not in the workshop.
Not in the workshop?
Well, no, we go into open session after this,
Okay.
and there is a discussion, take possible action on Hurricane Harvey rebuild and recovery to include the city buildings and.
So we'll
Any
be
topic.
very specific on these things.
Dave, so now my question goes to, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
So my question now goes is, we now have 3,000 square feet we need to add to the fire station.
No, it's already in that design.
Sorry.
Yeah, the fire, Janak already has the fire at like 65, or what's your design on that? It's,
I don't know the square footage, but we have it already designed to the level that.
yeah, it already has, it's had EMS in there from the get-go.
So,
9,000.
With DMS.
okay.
Yes.
So here's a question, all right? This solves one problem. It still leaves fire and EMS. Is there any options to get them rolling like?
I think I think in a couple months, we bring you a fire option too.
Okay, I mean, but
We keep working it.
because,
This one was knocked out.
but yeah, I mean, they're intense.
No, and it's not that we're not trying. We're looking at the infrastructure bill, see critical facility, but that's money down the road. We're shovel ready. I mean, we are trying to see if there's some other way to squeeze it. We talked about the coastal bend mitigation money from GLO, that they did a hearing earlier this week for ideas. Fire station idea.
But we only have one seat.
So, yeah, right now, this will let you kind of stay in line with the public safety police, and have enough money that you don't borrow.
That's a big. All right, so I keep moving forward.
No, so when we need to take, let me go to this last part, so you know what our expectations as a team, with speaking with the city and where we're going forward for this year. We have a number of projects and grants and closed out debris, drain catch basins, marina, the boats. So those are all gonna go, hopefully close that out. What that means is then your audit starts, your time period, lock it in with state, everybody's reviewing. Under construction, the Charlie's Pasture bulkhead, hopefully, will be under construction. It has to be fully monitored, per the feds. We know the piers, the 3 piers are gonna be going on. Hopefully the distribution, will be approved, so we'll have that $22 million, about a 2.5 million, 2.5 year construction timeline to complete that project. The Nature Preserve South Boardwalk, I think, is one of our action items. And then the EDA, it's really the lifts.
Yeah, Dr. Dennis, it's all demoed, and the filings are gonna be here on the 23rd. They'll start putting filings in the ground. And that's
done, completed, dropped?
So really, and then there's 5 major design projects. 3 of them we just talked about. The North Boardwalk, that is a very sensitive environmental area, plus the washout, plus, so that's why we split them up. Originally, they were 1 grant, and then the Harbor Master Office, of course. So that will be what you should expect from us.
Appreciate it. Thank you. That fills in a lot of blanks.
Yeah, and I expect a lot of questions. Please ask. These guys live in agreement.
You said initially it was like 102 on a total projects, 85 obligated, 17 delta, and I counted about those 3 somewhere around 10. So there's another 7 million somewhere.
Yeah, so there's little versions. The right side, we're working on Roberts Point Park right now. So some add, some deduct, final closeout, pay statements.
So there's small amounts in other projects.
Everything. Not one of those 63 projects the state has not closed out for.
Got it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all. I really do appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
John, can we move to
We'll
4?
have the open session. Thank you. Discuss and take possible action on workshop session items on Hurricane Harvey rebuild and recovery to include but not limited to city buildings, citywide gas systems, and other hurricane-related topics.
Thank you.
So we would request someone to, if you guys are willing to move forward with option C.
I make a motion that we approve option C for the public safety building as stated in our presentation.
A second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, call the roll.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Krueger,
Yes.
Councilmember Mott,
Yes.
Councilmember Park,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson Holt,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so let's get with that. Yeah, city council comments. Yeah. Okay, the meeting is adjourned. The workshop is adjourned.
I do not know why it's not working. There's something, we had it all set up. It was working great. That settings, we need to have.